Hello, we're here.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. This is weird, isn't it? This is a break from the norm for sure. For the gang who's been around for the last 2 years, this is a different kind of stream. But hey, guys, welcome in. It's me, Thiramar, aka Luke and Leofson, aka Lars Winters, aka a future name that you guys are going to decide later tonight when we make a new character. And with me is King Matt Superior, aka Sarin Farspeaker, future senator. No.
And Shifty Winters, obviously,
Shifty Winters, yep.
of Cowboy
Quite
fame.
possibly the most amazing character I've ever met, but you'll hear more about him at a later date. How's everyone doing? We'll just quickly say hello to everyone in chat. Hello. That was easy.
Hello.
Very straightforward. Apologies, I've turned off a lot of channel point redeems that I know some of you will be very upset about because you love to absolutely spam the heck out of them. Short back and sides, for fuck's sake.
Exactly.
Here we go. Whoa, everyone's coming in. Hey. I hope everyone's having a lovely Sunday night. Yeah, so we've turned off most alerts, but we have left in a redeem. If you've got questions and such, drop them in there, and we will read them as we go through the stream and answer them. I have to say, we are by no means experts in any of what we're about to talk about. We're literally just two guys having a chat.
Absolutely.
But should we talk about why we're here? What we're doing? Why the podcast? Quite simply, just a bit bored. Thought it would be fun. I think I think it's something that we've talked about a lot over, I'd say probably maybe 2 years now. I think maybe we thought about originally doing it through lockdown and stuff. And now everyone else and their mums have done it. Now is the time for us to do ours.
Absolutely.
Oh, thanks for the gift sub, Matt.
That's okay.
Throw that in there quickly. Yeah, so no redeems, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, everyone. Everyone's kicking off in the chat about it, but it's fine. Yeah, so in terms of what the hell is going on, we're going to do an introduction to LARP today, and we're going to have a slightly deeper dive / broader look into Empire LARP, which is the main LARP that we that we run. Apparently, you're a bit quiet, Matt. Hold on.
Sorry.
I just need to turn you up a bit, I think.
Talking with my indoor voice.
Yeah. How is that?
Hello, can everyone hear me okay?
Hello.
Am I louder now? I'm
Think
also
so.
trying to be conscious because I've got to be quiet in my house at this time.
Okay. Well, Tom's just going to have to really put his ear to the speaker.
So going on to why we're doing this, like you said, we're going to try to do a brief rundown of Empire LARP over a stretched out amount of episodes and streams, and then I guess we'll then just waffle on to a general chat of LARP in the future.
Yeah.
So we'll start with Empire LARP because it's something we've both done for a while now, both passionate about.
And it's where we met.
We did meet at Empire LARP.
So there's a lot of history in Empire LARP, I think. So I think it makes sense to start with it. There's also an absolute ton of stuff going on at it, so I think it's something that we can cover over multiple sessions.
And I guess before we get ahead of ourselves and start talking about Empire LARP, we'll talk about LARP itself.
Ourselves?
Well, LARP itself. Right?
I want to know. I want you, Matt, to tell me how you got into LARP.
Okay. How did I get into LARP? I stumbled across a video on YouTube by some YouTubers who did Empire LARP. And they just did a kind of a brief sort of half an hour video where they spoke about what it was, and I was sort of just hooked on it, really. I loved the look of it. I love the idea of it, having sort of physical money you can play with and resources and stuff like that. I just thought it was really cool. And yeah, that was it, really. Obviously, they've got a website you can just go on and look at before you don't have to spend any money. You can create your character, you can have a look at the whole world before you spend anything, which is really helpful. So you don't have to turn up to your first event without a clue and then think it's not for you and that's it, done. So that's how I kind of, like I said, I found this video, really into it. Joined the Facebook groups, got a lot of Facebook support at the moment, obviously. Bumped into a few people there who were new as well, and we went to our first event together. And at least half of that group are still playing after 4 or 5 years, and I still know them really well. So,
are you talking about the Haddie's Hall?
Yes, sort of. I'm talking about. So I started off as the Two Houses, which was our group.
Yes, I remember seeing the
two houses one were Haddie's Hall, and the other one was, I'll remember later. I can't quite remember now. And yeah, so I say that was a group of mates, and we've all sort of gone our separate ways in the game, but we're all still in contact and see each other every event, which is really nice. So yeah, lucky that I've kind of bumped into good friends very early on. But that's my story. Please tell me about your story.
All right. Well, before we go on to me, we've had a request that you show your shield behind you.
No. So yeah, go
on. There we go. Look at that.
And it's my sword as well.
Oh yeah.
Purposely placed there for props for the stream. So this is normally hidden away, but that is my shield. It something I bought. I don't know, second event or something like that. Yeah, LARP stuff.
Yeah. Do you want to also briefly tell us about Sarin? Because I know that he definitely doesn't use that sword and shield.
No, he doesn't. So I guess Sarin's my second character now. I went in. I'll talk about my character. So my first character, Ferris Haddie, of Haddie Hall. He was the Thane of Haddie's Hall. He was my first character. Off the top of my head, I can't think about how long I had him, but possibly 2 years, maybe. He actually died in a battle, so I was fighting at an event and he died. Wasn't planned or anything. It's just how it happened. It was
F in the chat
yeah, F in the chat for Ferris. But it was good game. I wasn't upset by it or anything. It was actually fun. And then being a first character, it gave me time to think about the game, and I was very much in my comfort zone with my first character. And then I've gone into Sarin, which is my second character, and I deliberately from day one chose something that was completely out of my comfort zone. So I've gone into sort of ritual magic and stuff with Sarin, which is something we'll explain later when we talk about the game. It was a bit more role playing, which I'm not such a confident role player, so I try to go out of my comfort zone just to encourage me to do new stuff, right? So that's where Sarin's come from, and I guess I've been playing him for 2.5 years, 3 years. I don't know the timings because we had COVID in the middle of it also. But Sarin's been around for a while, and I'm hoping he'll be around for a lot longer. Again, so he's a magician. He does rituals, and he's a politician. So he's currently in the politics game with the idea of becoming a senator if he can, with his skills. Fingers crossed. So yeah, I guess that's where Sarin is. He wants to be wealthy. He wants to be a famous or a good politician and do politicking in the Empire.
Quite the contrast to my character, which we'll find out about very shortly.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, no, that's good. In terms of how I got into LARP, it's not all that different really from how you got into it. So I too saw the same video that you're probably talking about. And then, well, actually, I'd heard about LARP before that, maybe 10 years prior, but I was a kid and nobody I knew had even heard of it, let alone would want to try it. And I was young, so I sort of put it out of my mind for a long time. And then I remember seeing something about it, and then quite literally the next day, Mr. Hawkins Hero in the chat sent me a video and was like, have a look at this. What do you think of this? And I was like, this is it. But I remember it being massively out of my comfort zone. Definitely quite stressed about going for the first time, because you just don't know what to expect, do you?
Did you went with, so obviously Tom, and is that who you went through in your first event?
Yep, our very first event was E4 of September 2017. I think we worked it out the other day, didn't we?
That's right. Yeah.
And
so we went the same. Our first events were the same time, and we actually never met on our first event, did we?
No. I think it was maybe the second event, vaguely.
That's right, yeah.
And it was at a point where I was still just in awe of everything going on, so I didn't really take in most of the people I spoke to.
I think I bumped into you at my second event, to then a couple of events later circle back round and meet you again. So you guys offered me drink and was being very hospitable.
Oh, well, there we go. We were very conscious about being Wintermark hospitable.
Yeah.
No, I think that's something that has just been maybe built into us to just try and be hospitable
Friendly
to people. So it was quite easy to make the transition to a make believe world. But it was just me and Tom, and we had a tent in the out of character area. We turned up at 10 o'clock at night, something silly, and we put the tent up with the car lights on, like shining on the patch that we were camping. And then little did I know, by the Sunday the battery was going to be flat on the car, but it was, I guess, life-changing, really.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people can probably say, people that have obviously done LARP before and stuff, it was probably a turning point in their life, even though, it's just a hobby. I think it's quite a drastic hobby to have.
I think it's safe to say it very quickly becomes more than just a hobby to a lot of people. It's it's a big part of you, essentially.
Yeah. Have you ever played Second Life?
No.
Or heard of Second Life? It's basically Second Life.
I have heard of Second Life. I mean, without going off on a ramble, characters come and go in Empire, and you get emotionally attached to people.
Yeah.
And I know the person's still there, but when the character moves on, whether that's death or it can get to you. And like I said, all of a sudden it's more than just a game. It's
It does. If you're immersed enough, it does bleed into what feels like real life, I think.
Which to me, in an odd way, feels great. It feels real to be emotionally attached to your pretend character, get emotionally attached to another pretend character, and it makes it more of a game. But obviously, we've heard obviously how you got to Empire, but what's your character do?
My character, well, he is Lucan Leofson, to the people that haven't met him yet. He is quite literally one of the winter markers of all time.
Absolutely.
His main sort of goal, I guess, is to just try and make it as chill as possible for himself. It's my first Empire character, and I've been playing him since we first went.
And he is a thing.
He is a thing of our hall. Obviously, we will dive into this deeper as the series goes, but in our one of the 10 nations of Empire, we are in Wintermark, and we belong to a hall, and Lucan is the Thane of the hall currently.
He's an important person, essentially.
No, I don't think important is the right word. He's important like the royal family are important.
He's important to me. There we go. So, I guess introductions.
Yeah, well,
So,
I want to cover a question quickly, if I may.
okay. I've got another question I'll pose as well.
Okay. So, moving into what is LARP, a question that we've had, and it's a question that I get asked a lot by people who haven't been.
I've seen this question as well. Absolutely.
How similar is it to the movie Role Models?
I would like to answer this one. It's exactly that. No, I jokingly I use Role Models as an example, and Role Models does it justice and also not so. It essentially that is LARP, right? That is LARP. It's a different form of LARP. American LARPs quite like that, and it is an American LARP in Role Models. But I think if you want to boil it down to fun, it is that you're dressing up as a character. And what I like about Role Models, yes, you've got a big battle in it, right? But do you know when they first get introduced to this LARP, when they go along with, I've forgotten his name, McLovin, you know who I'm on about.
Yeah, McLovin.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
McLovin in any film that
he
he's
is
in.
McLovin. So they go with him, and they meet up in a car park, right? And he makes a comment about like, oh, I should have never started feeding them. Is it elves or something? I don't know. But like, it's almost like
I haven't watched it in a very long time.
So he like takes them along to the LARP, and they're literally just sat in this car park with a car, and they're all dressed up. But they're like, all of a sudden, there's this little world there. It's I don't know. It just seems very innocent, and just the people that in the moment are just enjoying it. They're living this world, and they're enjoying it. And I think it's a nice little sort of adaptation of LARP. Although it's a bit tongue in cheek, I think it is sort of nice. I wouldn't be ashamed to be like, yeah, that's LARP. It's all hobbies are different. LARP's a strange one from the outside. So I would like to say, Role Models. You can compare it to British LARP. it is just different, but that's my 2 cents.
I like what you said about it being, when you look at it, like when you watch the film, it becomes its own little world, and you can sort of suspend belief of real life briefly while it's going on. But I have to say that is probably where the similarities end with how in the UK we have LARP, and it's always going to be difficult because it's an American film and it's American LARP, and obviously the research they did probably was only American Boffer LARP, which is very, very different to what we do. It's also extremely hard to film LARP and make it look cool at the best of times. Let alone in a film where I think they're probably trying to play up to the fact that it's a bit cringe.
I'm going to say one thing, and then maybe we should jump on to our first topic, which is LARP is cool and great to those playing it because they're invested in it, right? So if you're not understanding of LARP and you're looking at it from the outside in, then maybe it looks odd. Whereas, you go to Empire. I say this to my wife, like, who's not interested in LARP and doesn't like the idea of dressing up. But I said, like, when you're all in a field together and you're all dressed up, being your characters, that's the norm. So if you were to turn up in normal clothing going, oh, I don't want to do this, like, you're the odd one out. So it's all, I don't know. But what I was going to say is, this is very much led on to our first sort of topic, right? Of what is LARP?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
I guess we wanted to start off talking about what is LARP in general before we go into Empire LARP.
What does LARP stand for?
What does LARP stand for? I'll allow you to.
It's live action roleplay. Essentially.
Action roleplay.
If you've played an RPG like Skyrim or The Witcher or anything like that, that's all types of role-playing games. This is just doing those games in real life. And I think that's probably the easiest way to describe it. Another way is for people who've played Dungeons and Dragons, it's like playing D&D in real life.
Yeah, it's in person, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially. But obviously LARP can be anything. So we've briefly spoken about Empire. I guess you've spoken about D&D, which is a fantasy setting.
Yep.
LARP, I guess, isn't necessarily associated with a certain setting. It could be anything. So we talk about sort of a low fantasy setting, which is Empire. We've got high fantasy out there. We have Western gunslinger shootings. We have sci-fis.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So some of
so
the other LARPs that I'd really like to cover if we do this as a series.
mhm.
A few of the gang in the chat would be very familiar with iLARP, which is a very popular live action role play producing company in our part of the UK. And this is where we sort of see a larger diversity of other kinds of LARPs. So Flying Lead is the cowboy LARP that you mentioned.
Iron Lead is the cowboy LARP, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Which I don't know from experience, but there's probably other cowboy LARPs out there. But Flying Lead's one we know and
mhm.
is a very popular game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one we know and one we've both played.
I think iLARP's a good example of a company that does multiple different types of LARP, right?
Yes. Yeah. So
you have carry on, yeah.
I was just going to say, for those that might not be familiar with the different LARP companies, Profound Decisions, who put on Empire, that is a very big LARP in terms of
The
people that
biggest in the
attend.
UK.
Yeah.
Mm.
Whereas iLARP run a more diverse selection of LARPs for a smaller audience, which
Yeah.
I think is a really good way of. I'd say probably it's quite a good introduction to LARP, going to a smaller.
It's just a different model, right? I
Mm.
guess you could argue small amount of players. You could maybe make it a bit more personal, but maybe a bit more intense on the role playing side. So whereas Empire is a lot bigger, so maybe a bit easier to get into, perhaps.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. I'm just saying that from sort of my lack of experience of other LARPs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pretty much if you can think of something in popular culture, there's probably a LARP of it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a Stargate LARP out there, right?
Mm-hmm. There has
Um,
been. I don't know if it still is running, but
okay.
I've
But
definitely seen a picture of a giant Stargate in the middle of the
I have.
woods, which is really cool. I'd love to do that.
So it's out there essentially.
Mm,
I'm sure if you look hard enough, you'll find a LARP about most things, which is great because we all, you all see stuff on TV or play games, and you think, I want to do that in person. I want to live that, and LARP gives you that opportunity to do so.
yeah.
I guess LARP could be anything. LARP's not something you have to pay for. LARP's not something you have a company has to run. You can LARP with some mates.
Yeah.
We could just go camp somewhere for the weekend and LARP, live action roleplay. We can do what you want. I've something we missed off as well on LARPs. Lord of the Rings.
Yes. I believe
Lord of the Rings themed.
Yeah, I think Lorien Trust has elements of
Yep.
more of a high fantasy like Lord of the Rings.
Exactly. So there's plenty out there and plenty of availability and options and stuff. So and we're just talking about the UK, right? To keep it simple,
Yes.
we're talking about our experiences in the UK. There's absolutely loads in Europe and America and everywhere you can think of. Everywhere you can think of.
There's one in I can't remember where it is. I
Germany,
think
isn't it?
Is it Germany? Dragonfest?
Yeah, that's right.
Looks unbelievable.
It's Empire. I guess you could argue it's Empire LARP, which we haven't covered yet, but it's Empire LARP, but super big. Which I guess leads us on to our next topic, if you're happy to move on.
What the heck is Empire?
What's Empire?
So briefly covered some of it naturally, I think, but it's the current LARP game that Profound Decisions are running.
Mhm. And
They've.
I guess who's Profound Decisions?
Do you mean who is the
Who
Profound Decisions?
who is the Profound Decisions?
Mr. Matt Pennington.
Yes.
Hmm.
As a company, sorry.
As a company,
Oh,
well, we're
I'll talk about it.
obviously we've played Empire for 6 years coming up this year.
Mhm.
But the lifespan of Profound Decisions as a company goes back way, way further than
Mhm.
anything we've seen. And I don't know which came first, but they had a game called Maelstrom.
Yep.
And another one called Odyssey.
Mhm.
Odyssey, I know, was ancient Greek, Roman,
I think
ancient
a
civilization.
mythology type thing, I want to say.
Yeah, like classics.
I haven't looked into it, so I probably should have.
Hmm.
But yeah, absolutely. And then I think Maelstrom was what you looked at the other day, didn't you? It was something. I want to guess sort of like pirate type.
Oh yeah,
It was
I
something
forget.
colonial, wasn't it? It was
Yes, it
something
was colonial
colonial.
themed.
So yeah, I guess you could say like pirates and sort of maybe Pirates of the Caribbean era. Which sound really cool. So I guess you could argue PD have plenty of experience when it comes to LARP, and I think Odyssey was a larger game in a way as well. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, I guess you could argue they've got their experience with bigger LARPs. So going into Empire, which is their current game, you would like to say they were equipped to handle it. And
Yeah,
the fact that Empire's been going such a long time, and you could say they're doing quite well, then it obviously goes to show that they were equipped.
yeah,
So I guess you could say that's who PD are. You know, it's a company. They run the biggest LARP in the UK. Do a good job at it.
Maelstrom was a new world / conquering the Americas with an Age of
Yeah,
Empire skill tree underneath it.
there we go. Thank
Hmm.
you. Yeah, I again we read the description, didn't we, the other day, and I've just completely slipped my mind. But
Yeah, one thing that you guys will learn about us very quickly is that our ability to retain information is shocking,
awfully low. Um,
which isn't very good at a LARP that has hundreds and hundreds of wiki pages.
No, absolutely not. However, I feel like if there's a nugget of information we do know and we keep hold of it, we can talk about it for ages.
Hmm.
So there's that. So I guess that was sort of introduction to PD. I
Yeah,
guess you could say PD have a website. Obviously, their games got a massive Wikipedia. They've got a website, so you can go on, search them up. Profound Decisions, you'll find them easy peasy.
yep. If we have time later, well, we should have time later on in the stream when we start looking at character creation.
Yep.
You get to see the website, and I would say how easy it is to set up a character. I think it's very straightforward to set up a character on the website.
It's extremely easy from my experience of, for example, straight away someone who doesn't play a lot of D&D and stuff, which I feel like it's a sort of a natural background maybe to a lot of players. But if you don't come from that, going onto that website, making a character, it is very easy. It's and that's one thing they've done really well. I think it's they make it easy to jump on, make a character. But I guess that's for later. So
Yeah.
do we want to talk about the Empire itself as a world our characters live in?
Yeah, so how would you describe Empire? When people ask me about Empire, I think the themes of it are so broad and there's so much borrowed from various points in history that it can take forever to even briefly describe it. But I think that's quite a good way of describing Empire. It's borrowed themes from throughout history.
Are we? I guess me and you agree that it is sort of a low fantasy setting.
Yeah, I think so. In terms
There
of
are
magic and
orcs.
stuff, yeah, there's only humans and orcs that are playable. So
Yeah, there is other things out there, but playable characters are orcs and humans. There are lineages, but that's something we can go into in a bit. So I guess you could say it's low fantasy.
Maybe medium fantasy.
Yeah, maybe low to medium.
I think for it to be high fantasy, there'd have to be a lot more physical magic.
I mean, maybe the
stuff.
the chat might.
Moderate fantasy is one of the
the
suggestions.
I guess you could say, because there are orcs and stuff, right? So,
Hmm.
but for example, there's no dwarf races. There's no elves.
Yeah.
So, lukewarm fantasy is a good suggestion. So, yeah, we could say so. Low fantasy. You've touched on saying how broad the empire is when it comes to like a look and feel, maybe. So
So what I was alluding to is the
nations, right?
Yeah, there's a multitude of nations that all borrow from various historical and non-historical too, I suppose. To use ours as an example, again, we'll go over it more when we talk about Wintermark. But part of the brief is like Saxon / the Rohirrim of Lord of the Rings, which is quite a mix of history and mythology. I'd say not mythology, but
But I guess going into that, so there's 10 nations, right?
Mm-hmm.
In
10
Empire,
nations.
These 10 nations make up the Empire, and this is what world we live in. And each nation is very different in its look and feel. And I guess that makes it attractive to players because, more or less, I could almost confidently say there is a look and feel nation to most people's sort of
there's something for everyone.
Preference. Yeah, so I like when I first started, I was like, oh, Game of Thrones was out, love Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, cool. So Wintermark sort of felt natural to me, where there's a sort of a nation which is very Venetian, got very fancy wear, like clothes, looks incredible. So there's some players out there might go, that really fits them, and there's so many nations that I think, which again, credit to PD, it only plays their benefit of encouraging players to come along because there's so much choice. You're not restricted to a couple of nations which you're like, I don't really like that. Whereas I think you'll be hard pushed to find a nation that you don't quite like, or you don't like, or you don't stick with Empire, because there's just so much choice, and a lot of the nations are very different, which is ideal. And going on to nations, we mentioned the 10 nations in the Empire, but there are also foreign nations as well. These are non-playable at the moment, right? But there is other things out there. So it's not just these 10 nations interacting. There's also foreign nations. I guess, what's the word? Friendly and hostile foreign nations. So there's people we like, and there's people we're at war with.
And neutral ones.
And neutral. Yeah. So
I think this is I've just seen a question come in. I think it's a very good and relevant question. Can we name all of the nations? Can we name all 10?
Yeah.
I would be very embarrassed if we can't. And now I've said that, that's out there. So I really hope we can.
Slam it. Go for it.
All right. Wintermark, easy.
Yeah.
Dawn.
Dawn.
Do we want to talk about the nations as we go?
Not yet, I don't think.
Okay.
We don't need to.
Okay.
So I guess we've got Wintermark, Dawn, Highguard, the Brass Coast, the League, the Marches, the Var, Tirzan, Marushka, Imperial Orcs.
That's it.
And the Brass Coast.
You've said Brass Coast. That's 10.
That's them. And I'll tell you why I know that. Because every night,
you just read them.
Every night I sit in bed and I think of. I've got the Wikipedia up. I've got the Wikipedia up. So yeah, there's.
I know. Hang on. I know that's nonsense because you've never read the wiki in your life.
There's a first for everything, and live on a stream is that first. So there's plenty of nations, plenty of looks, feels, plenty to get your teeth into. Again, I don't know if you can check it in the chat, but maybe sling up a link to the Empire Wiki. If it's something you haven't seen,
so
go check it out. It's the wiki's great. There's so much on the wiki.
If in fact I haven't put a link to the wiki, but if anyone wants to look at any of the links for the unofficial Discord, the player groups on Facebook, or the Empire website itself, which has a link to the wiki, then it's just !Empire in the chat.
So I was just pop the link in the chat, but it might be told.
Oh yeah, no, you're good.
Okay, so nations. Okay, so we covered the nations. Plenty of nations, plenty to do, plenty to look at. Covers most people, right?
Yeah.
So I guess we talked about PD. We talked about the game. Do you want to talk about the scale of the game?
Definitely.
We've said it's the biggest in the UK, which it absolutely is by far.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we should talk a bit about the scale of when you're in the game, because I don't know anything else like it. I remember when we were going for the first time. I said earlier I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but then you get there and this whole other world that you have absolutely no experience of is just existing and thriving and going about its day-to-day routine.
And I guess you say whole other world when you're at the scale PD are currently at. When it comes to players, it is another world.
Yeah,
it's not a couple of dozen friends at a campsite. It's safe to say we estimated like just under 3,000 players.
I think so. I don't know if anyone has in the chat has an accurate number. It would be cool to know, but it's always hearsay. And the last I heard was around that vicinity. I think.
I would confidently say it's over 2.6 thousand players. I would confidently say that. So scale. So that's scale wise. Someone's put in the chat about 3,000
with crew
people there with crew. So you think so again that is a world. It's and you touched on it about how it's I guess it's hard to talk about till you're there. It's hard to get that feeling, but it's
Sam said a second ago, like you can read as much of the wiki as you want, but until you go, you just don't understand the scale.
Scale. It is. It's you can
the
get
magnitude.
Lost. You can get lost for a whole weekend. It's humongous. It's absolutely humongous. And again, credit to PD. It flows well, I think. For the player size, it works. It works, which again is great. To have 3,000 people or 2,500 players, whatever, in a field, multiple fields because we're too big now. But yeah, it's fair few fields. It's good. It's incredible. It's good work what they've done.
Yeah, and when I talk to people who've like more inquisitive people that want to hear about it, the first thing I tell them usually is the amount of different things that you can, that not even that you can do, the things that are just there for you. An entire currency system, a pretty much functioning auction and economy, which is kind of to do with the currency, but like the currency is physical. It's not. It's as real as actual money.
You have physical
essentially.
Coins, right? You have physical coins. You have, say, resources, for example. You have physical things you can hold for most resources.
Yeah.
If not, you've got cards and stuff which represent things. So, I guess production value is great. It's not like you're just writing stuff down. You've got something physical to hold. Every time you buy something which is mechanically in the game, you have something physical to hold and show people and talk about, which for me makes me tingle. I love it.
Yeah, same. A lot of people thrive with theatre of the mind kind of stuff, but I definitely like having more physical things because it feels more real.
Big bag of coins. That's what I love.
A big bag of single rings.
Single ring coins to make me feel wealthy. That's it. yeah, so we've got lovely photos of the coins. Before we forget as well, I thought it'd be worth mentioning that PD will be having a stall at Watch Your Game in Gloucester in February, where if you've got any questions and you're swinging by all means go up to and talk to them. I've been multiple times to Watch Your Game, and they've got a really friendly bunch on their stall at Watch Your Game, and they would happily chat to you. They're really great. Any questions? If you haven't been before, if you have been before but still got something else, just go talk to them. They're really, really helpful, really friendly. So I thought I'd mention that before we forget, because we're going to get carried away and go on to other things. But
yeah, that's fine. While we're talking about it, it's you just mentioned Watch Your Game, was it?
Watch Your Game.
Yeah. 4th and 5th of Feb. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. £3.50 a ticket. I've got all the info.
And what is Watch Your Game? It is a sort of LARP fair in Gloucester, where there's lots of traders there. You can go along, you can buy items, buy clothing. There's a really great guy there from Valhalla Meads who sells absolutely lovely mead. I've seen him at a couple of markets. Every time I see him, I go buy a bottle of mead. He's got incredible stuff. The Asgard is exceptionally nice.
We're not sponsored.
We're not sponsored by Valhalla Meads.
Well, Matt might have been sponsored. I don't know anything about it, so he's getting all of the royalties there.
So that's what Watch Your Game is. It's a market essentially. There's lots of retailers there for LARP stuff. And from memory, there's probably 30 traders there. Yeah,
because you've been before, haven't you? I've not been yet. I'm hoping to go next month.
Yeah, been a couple of times. I'm hoping to go as well. So
we need to sort that, because the tickets are only on sale online until I believe the 27th of January, and then it's pay on the door.
And it's normally pretty busy there. So, but it's a great sort of couple of hours there. It's great. Again, Empire's there. They've got a stall. Go chat to them. Very helpful people as always. So that's that.
Another one that I'd like to go to, but it's probably a bit out of my way this year, is LARPCon, which is coming up on the 4th and 5th of March. So it's easy to remember. Both events are on the 4th and 5th, one in Feb, one in March. LARPCon is in somewhere in Leicester. And I think it's... Sorry?
I thought it was Birmingham for some reason.
Well, it's a Leicester postcode.
Fair enough. And is Empire at LARPCon?
Yes, they're at both. So exactly the same as Watch Your Game. If you're new and you're thinking about going to LARP, but you want to get a bit of a heads up before, then definitely go to either of these events. There's the links in the chat to both of them. You can look into them a little bit more. LARPCon, I haven't been, but I assume it's like a con, but specifically for LARP companies and games that are running around the UK.
And I guess it's safe to say, if you're watching this video at a later date on any other platform, it would be in the description of all those links.
Yep.
Assuming you're there watching this video before those events have been. Otherwise, you've missed them, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
they'd be good to go to. But going back to scale of Empire itself, an entire currency, an entire economy, you've got a full-on political Senate game, which obviously you're more involved in than I am. I've watched one, but you're actively involved as proxy senator of Wintermark.
I was about to say, I guess this sort of leads on to our next thing, which is what you can do in the game, right?
Yep, that will probably cover that. Yeah.
That is it. So straight away, you've touched on.
Yeah, but there's in terms of scale that we're not even close to the end of the things that are going on there. You've got the entire military side of the game. A lot of people go purely for fights and military RP. You've got the magic side of the game. There are a lot of people who are ritualists like ourselves. There's people that are specifically battle mages. Then you've got the healing side of the game. There's an entire thing dedicated to healing, and potion making, etc. Yeah, it is absolutely wild. And then on top of that, that's just the core things that PD have implemented. But then the amount of stuff that players have come up with.
I was going to mention that earlier. There's so much that players bring to the game that are aside. So trading, there is traders. PD have traders that go along selling wares and stuff, but there's also players that do that. There's players that you could argue like a good chunk of the game is purely made by players.
Yeah.
Religion,
yeah, that's a good one, Tom. Extremely huge part of the game.
It's potentially a cornerstone of the game. But yeah, I think there's a hell of a lot players do for the game, and there's a lot the game does for players. So it's good synergy with PD. Have got it at the moment right, where players do have a bit of leeway of what they can do, kind of. So they do bring a lot to the game.
Yeah, but there's very much something for everyone out there. There's loads of things that we wouldn't have even covered in that brief description, but we'll get to them as we go, probably through each nation and what we do as characters further down the line. I see we've covered most of what
that's why
yeah.
So I guess we'll go on. I guess we'll just go a bit more into it, right? So we've briefly described a lot of what you do in the game, but this next section is going to be what you do in the game. So, like I said, we briefly explained it, but maybe we just go a bit more into it, right? So we've talked about fighting. Let's go into fighting briefly. Let's not spend ages, but let's go briefly into it. So, fighting's done in many ways. Safe to say. So, the game itself, you get given opportunities to do fighting. You can fight whenever you want. I guess that's safe to say, right? You can go up to
technically, you can fight whenever you want.
Let's have it out with our weapons. Obviously, you're not bare knuckle boxing. That's not allowed. But LARP safe weapons. You can kind of go at it. They give you opportunities throughout the game where you can fight crew. So, who are crew? They're people that PD get along, and they'll run sort of enemy soldiers and stuff like that. So you've got smaller, what they call skirmishes throughout the weekends, where smaller groups of players get to go out and fight smaller groups of enemies for fun. Or I guess there's an objective, but obviously it's all fun. That's why we're there. And then twice a weekend you get big old battles. So you get a big battle. What do you want to say? 200-300 aside? Is that too much?
No, I'd say probably more.
Okay, so
I'd say at least half of the people that are there go to the fights. So if we're talking 2,800 ish, I'd say there's probably 500 to 600 per side.
Okay, let's say that. Okay, so 500-600 people aside. So you could have up to 1,000 people on the battlefield. So there's one of those on a Saturday. There's one of those on a Sunday. So anyone interested in fighting, there's absolutely plenty to do there. There's plenty of opportunities to fight. So these smaller scale skirmishes, you might be looking at 100 people, 100 players tops. These big battles, you've got a lot of people there. Fighting, you could argue, is a big part of the game. There's a lot of skills and stuff involved in fighting. There's a lot of equipment and clothing and enchantment stuff. Or I guess, would you say it's enchantment? I don't know, possibly. There's a lot.
In terms of making magic weapons,
that's
the enchanting side of it.
There's a lot there for fighting, right?
Yeah, there's also opportunities for people that aren't necessarily fighters to still go out on the battlefield and do low and non-combat roles.
Yes, so I referred to fighting. Yeah, I referred to battles as fighting, but yeah, you're absolutely right. There's fighting. Yeah, so we're talking about fighters currently, but when there's big battles, there's absolutely need for healers who might be non-combatants. Absolutely. I've been on the battlefield myself as a non-combatant doing magic stuff. So, yeah, you don't have to fight. I would always recommend new players or people that haven't fought before to try get the opportunity to fight. To go on the battles, sorry, not fight, but to go on the battles. Whether that be playing with the Imperials or monstering, which we haven't covered yet.
No, we should cover that.
Let's cover that now, shall we? Yeah.
Yep.
So, if you fight in a big battle, you get one big battle per event. If you fight in your big battle, you're expected to monster the other battle. So there is 2 battles in an event. You fight one, you're expected to monster one. What is monstering? Monstering is where you go play the enemies, right? So PD will give you an orc mask because the enemies are 9 times out of 10 orcs. If not, they're humans, but you can just go as yourself. Or without a mask, sorry. So they'll give you an orc mask and you go fight for the monsters. And
Yeah, so as a way to balance it and actually allow for large battles, you're asked to, if you're going to fight as your character, then you're asked to fight as one of the enemy the following day or the previous day, depending on when your nation is having their battle.
Yeah, so it, like you said, it just evens it out, right? So because obviously PD can't have 400-500 crew, that's a lot. So players are asked to do that, and that's a fair thing. If you go fight for your nation, you're expected to go monster for other people, to allow other nations to fight you. So that's fair. So that's what monstering is.
Yep. Another type of battle that happens on the weekend, Sam has just mentioned. This is particularly, or specifically for newer players, is the new player skirmishes that happen.
Normally just before time in.
Just before time in, isn't it? Yeah.
Which time in on Friday is 6, but I guess we'll get to time ins in a bit. New players, there's a hell of a lot to do for new players. I guess we'll get into shall we just finish our description of things you can do, and then maybe we'll just shift into new players?
Yeah.
And then we'll go on to our last. So, I'll stop it there. But there's lots to do with fighting. I've got so far off my path that I've forgotten where I started. So I'll stop it there.
We'll move on to trading.
Yeah. So absolutely. So trading, you've already, I guess, touched on that, Mark. But there is a whole economy in the game. And there's physical stuff. So wherever there's coin, right? Wherever there's currency, there's ways of making currency. Wherever there's buying mechanical resources from the game, whether there's people bringing beef jerky along and selling it, which people absolutely do. You know, friends of mine have bought cakes along and sold them. You know, wherever there's an economy, there's a way of making money. There's ways of spending money, and trading's big for it because each person has different resources, you could say, and it's obviously you want to sort of, certain resources are useful to certain people, whether you're making items, whether you're doing magic, whether you're repairing items, whether you're doing religious stuff. You need sort of these mechanical resources. And again, like I said, there's a whole economy out there which they've built, which is player run, isn't it? So I think it's got to a point where it's so big that I don't think Profound Decisions themselves can influence it so much, or so they could influence it so heavily. Like it's all sort of, you could maybe say it's sort of run away from it, where it's completely player controlled in a way. You know, there's so many resources out there floating around in players' pockets that it's hard for PD to control it too much. Which is kind of interesting. I think it's going exactly how they probably planned. That I think they wanted a game system that the economy felt alive and something that they didn't directly have control over. It's absolutely going. You know, you compare prices of certain things a few years back. Like I don't know, the more you play the game, you start to realize inflation of prices is basically player controlled almost. Sort of. Loosely.
I'd say so. You could essentially get a bunch of players to band together and say, we're only gonna pay this much for this resource, and then it would either tank it or make it explode. Exactly. But that would require a certain amount of cohesion betwing people. I don't think.
What I guess I'm saying is PD's not sat there going, no, it's worth this. You know, it is very much in the player's hands.
Yeah.
So you could argue like wanes of materials, which is something we'll get into, I guess, another time. But just talking to
Yeah. Well,
wanes
talking
materials
of
back in
talking
the
of
day were like crowns, not thrones.
talking of inflation of materials, Katie's mentioned the prices of herbs last event.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it is
Supply
it's all
and
stuff.
demand.
It's all stuff that you find out about in play, which is cool. But
Wait.
in terms of we touched briefly about people being able to make items and stuff for trading. If we're talking about artisans that make weapons and armor and stuff like that, then that's a whole other side to the game as well. And for new players especially, if it sounds like it's going to be perhaps overwhelming, this amount of stuff, you can go as an apprentice and you can basically try out all of these different things that we're going to be talking about. I think that's worth mentioning.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I guess it's safe to say trading's it's very much a live economy. It's living and breathing, as every player that goes to that event can influence it. And again, it's not strongly controlled by the games masters at RPD. It's very fluid, and lots of things can affect it, which is great. So do you want to? We've
got a question relating to the economy and trading. What happens if the players decide they'll only pay 3 crowns for something, but an NPC shows up being like, "Yeah, I'll buy it for 1 crown"? I haven't seen that happen, and I don't think. I think very much like the lay of the political land in real life is that no one can be that organized to drive a price to a specific price.
So I guess to answer that, I guess if players are like, we're not paying any more than 3 crowns, and an NPC turns up and says, "I'm only paying 1 for it," I guess you could say, what was the original price asked for the thing? But if someone's like, "I want 4 crowns for this," and the player's like, "Oh, I'm only going to pay 3," and then an NPC turns up and says, "I'm only paying 1," you'd probably tell them to jog on.
Yeah, it's also been mentioned in chat that it would rarely happen because there aren't enough NPCs anyway for that kind of exchange to happen, and that's not a negative thing on the game itself. It naturally runs for players by players, and there's only really a select. You very rarely see an NPC, and it's normally only in organized things.
If I'm absolutely honest on slightly guessing, I would say NPCs would only be put into the market to sell things, not necessarily buy things cheap. Maybe to buy things, but not to buy something. Like, they wouldn't try crash market by going, "Oh, it's only worth that." I think a lot of NPCs are brought in to sell items. If they want to dump some items in, or maybe like, for example, if the Empire had a shortage of white granite, you might find PD for fun would send someone in trying to buy a load of white granite just to make the Empire in a tougher situation. But I don't know. Yeah, I think maybe.
Yeah.
It's an odd scenario.
Yeah. But again, that's trading anyway.
That's trading's, I guess. Yeah, trading's trading. It's not different between players and NPCs. It's the same principle. If someone's asking too little, then you're not going to sell to them.
Absolutely.
So that's trading. I guess. Do you want to touch on magics?
Yeah. We can talk about magic. I mentioned earlier there's multiple different things to do with magic. You can specialize as a ritualist. There's multiple different planes of magic to draw your power from.
So shall we quickly cover the realms? So there's 6 realms.
We can quickly cover the realms.
I'll say them. I'm not going to talk about them. So there's spring, summer, autumn, winter, day, and night. And each of these realms, I guess, are tuned into a certain thing, right? So
yes.
certain certain.
Despite the names of the realms that you've just said there, they don't actually relate to the seasons in real life.
No, but they do tune into certain sides of magic, whether it be healing properties, whether it be curses, negative. There's each realm has a direction, you could say.
Yeah, or I guess slightly more of a theme than the others. So
Yeah,
autumn, for example, would revolve a lot around buffing businesses and the like, wouldn't it? It's very business orientated.
Without trying to guess what they all do, anyone watching, just go check the wiki out, because the wiki again is brilliant for this.
And I think
So
we'll do an
don't do
episode
it.
in the future where we'll go deeper into magic. But that's one side of magic,
Absolutely.
doing rituals.
Absolutely.
The other side would be utilizing it for the battles. So there's no ranged magic as such, as you probably remember from, well, if you're around our age, you'll remember internet videos of people throwing fireballs and stuff. Again, American LARP, beanbags. It's all contact magic, so you have to actually either touch the person with an implement like a weapon and say a spell out loud.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I guess before we move on, I'll quickly brief. So battle magic, obviously used for fighting and stuff. So you've got heals there. You've got sort of damaging spells. But again, you need to make that sort of contact with that player, whether that with be a sort of a staff or a rod or something like that.
Yeah.
Physical item, you can touch them. And then rituals are more down to sort of, I guess, effects on players, right? Or effects on places.
And they typically take a lot longer time to cast.
Mm-hmm. So a ritual is a bit heavier when it comes to sort of buffing and debuffing things and people, whereas battlefield stuff's a bit more like inflicting damage on an individual or a group if it's big enough, right? So, but I guess, yeah, it's, again, the wiki's there, but magic is very interesting. There's a lot there. There's at least two sides to magic, whether it's fighting or rituals and stuff, which is interesting because we're both ritualists. Mm-hmm. You used to be a battlefield mage.
Yep, I'm thinking about
both sides of it.
I'm thinking about making a return to the battlefield this year, but yeah, I do have a mix of magical skills currently. I can also mend broken weapons magically.
Exactly.
And there is the healing side to magic as well, which I guess would come under the battlefield, but not necessarily. You could be I guess you could technically be a mage healer in the hospital.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So all of I guess there's a few things we've just mentioned, which obviously we're going to do deep dives into when we do healing, when we do magic, and when we do fighting and stuff, which we want to try do like an episode per one, right? So, like, for example, you mentioned broken weapons. Weapons can break and they can be repaired. But obviously that's something we'll go into in more depth. So I guess the last one, which we're probably... Oh, actually, maybe not last one. We'll talk about healing then. So healing's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can heal people. Obviously, people get hurt, so you can heal them. They can... I guess physically beaten up as well as magically, sort of. So healers, they heal. How do you heal? You can have an ability, like a skill point, which you can assign to sort of healings, where you can actually heal people with your hands, or you can use herbs. Right? Herbs have healing properties.
Yeah. Or potions.
Or potions. So you can heal people without any of that. Right? It just takes a very long time.
It does.
When you're in the heat of a battle and you want to spend, I think it's 3 minutes or something silly, or is it not 3 minutes? I don't know. I'm not a healer, so I'm talking from lack of experience. But
yeah, I also don't know. But the healers in the chat will let us know very shortly.
So you can heal without herbs and stuff. It just takes a long time. Or you can use herbs, which again is this sort of mechanical resource in the game which you can buy and get hold of. They heal people, and you can use potions, which heal people really well, or potions can give buffs and stuff like that. So again, like another aspect of the game, healing wise, which very deep again, and we're hoping to do another episode on when we can.
Mm-hmm.
Again, healing, you've got, I guess you could say you've got two sides of it. You've got battlefield healers, people that go onto the battlefield and heal. And the Empire actually has a hospital as well. So players can be brought to the hospital.
Have you ever been taken to the hospital?
No, I haven't,
No?
luckily. No, luckily. All my healing was done on the battlefield. But yeah, so you can be taken to a hospital where you've got a load of people doing really good healing as well. So again, there's a couple of different types of healing straight away, without us going too deep into it.
Yep.
So
1 minute for the heal we were talking about earlier. 2 minutes.
Okay.
2 minutes to heal a cleave. 1 minute to get them up to 1 HP.
Maybe the person that healed me just wanted to just sit in a muddy puddle for an extra couple of minutes. Then I don't know. No, I'm joking.
Was it Katie?
No. Well, I can't say. I'll be spending another 3 minutes sat in a muddy puddle at some point.
Yeah.
So is it safe to say our last little nugget is faith?
That's probably the last thing we'll cover in our brief intro. It's a very, very large part of the game, and one that we need to get better at utilizing as a group, I would say.
So I think, to keep it very brief, it's very safe to say that faith is a big thing in the game, a very big thing in the game, and it's a very important thing in the game. Every player is tied to faith. It's not something you can just be, nah, I'm not interested in.
Yeah.
Every character is absolutely linked to the faith.
Devout.
It's a very, very big part of the game. Which, yeah, that there's again a whole massive side of the game to faith, which I don't have enough time to go into right now. But again, if we do, we're planning on doing an episode based on it. So, but faith is, you could probably say as big as magic, if not bigger. So yeah, faith can be, there's so much, without going off on a massive tangent for 20 minutes. Faith is humongous. There's lots. Basically, everyone's tied to faith. It has buffs and debuffs as well, right? Yeah, it does. So you can have sort of a mechanical effect to your character based off faith, whether you get I can't, the sort of word escapes me, but
like a hallowing.
Hallowing.
Are you talking about that kind of thing?
Dedication.
Oh, dedication. Yeah.
You're dedicated to a certain part of the faith. You can be sort of buffed in a certain way, which is all RP, and it's really cool. Again, it's sort of something we, as players and characters, haven't been too part of.
No, I think this year
in the past, but we have recently, because it is a big part of the game, right? And it's something, again, all characters are part of the faith system.
Basically, all I want to see is our good friend Scow doing some kind of religious involvement, because I know he's very against it. OC.
And you, I guess you could say, if you're against religion in the game, it's illegal.
I'm pretty sure you'll be inquisited.
Yeah, so that's how important religion is. So
yeah.
Again, we do deeper dives into each of these categories.
Yeah, one thing we haven't talked about at all really is the legal system and the Senate, which are also quite big parts of the game.
Well, do we want to adjourn for a quick drink break and then come back for Senate, and then we're going to finish off on our last little nugget before we do our Brucey bonus?
Yeah.
Does that sound fair?
But yeah, I was just talking about, I don't know if you mentioned it was the name of the religion, which is the Way.
The Way, sorry.
I was just talking about...
I deliberately didn't want to go too much into the religion because I'm not overly clued up on it, and also it's humongous. So...
yeah. There is a lot of stuff to talk about for the Way, but we will be definitely utilising some of our priests, perhaps, for that one.
Absolutely. So, I guess onto our last little bit of what we can do in the game, and that's the political system, Senate, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we're talking about? So,
Just briefly, yeah, I know you could probably talk about this for days because you're heavily involved in it, but
Absolutely. So I guess it's safe to say every nation has a set amount of MPs, so politicians assigned to the nations, and they're voted in what a certain way. Each nation does it differently, and they all come together a couple of times a day during the event. So they get together on a Friday night, get together on a Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and they talk about politics, and they get stuff done through politics. So whether that be the assigning of a political certain position, whether that be sort of like Master of the Mint and stuff, I think, or ambassadors. The election of the throne as well. So there is an emperor or empress or emperor, whatever. There is a sort of head role. So they elect that when that comes up. There is currently an election for one at the moment. So they vote on that. They vote on the construction of certain things. There is a fund pot for the Senate. So the sort of every nation pays a rent almost to the Empire, and then they have a pot of money, and the sort of Senate tries to divvy it up to important projects, right? So yeah, the Senate's very busy. The senators themselves are busy all weekend trying to get their little tasks done, you know. So, and that's again a big part of the game. So building buildings mechanically affects the game. Maybe creating of a new army. You know, you might want to build an army, a new army or something like that, or repair it, whatever. A lot of stuff goes through the Senate, where these senators have a vote essentially. So it's very complex and busy position. But again, it's very interesting. Like I said, your nations vote the senators in, and these senators then go and sort of supposedly act in the best interest of the people that vote them in.
Yeah, we have had a question about how senators are voted in. Obviously, it's going to depend on the nation that you're in. I don't actually know pretty much how any nation votes other than Wintermark.
So we'll go over Wintermark because that's what we know. Wintermark has 3 traditions and 3 senators. Each senator represents a tradition, and each tradition's people votes in that senator. So it's just a matter of a tally of votes to win a senator of Wintermark. Bumping into a league senator the other day, they buy votes, right? So they just purchase votes, and that's that. So
oh yes,
they basically buy their way in. So which again is completely different. It's not down to people voting. It's just someone who's paying for people's votes, which is again a really cool idea.
We are getting some info on the other nations come through in the chat actually, which is very interesting.
Thank you.
Apparently the orcs do similar to Wintermark, but with swords, which is a cool idea.
Very cool. Dawn do something different again. I can't remember what they do. I was speaking to a Dornish senator.
Yeah, Dawn have to collect favours, apparently.
That's the one. Yeah, I was speaking to a Dornish senator and they were telling me about it and I forgot. So each nation does it differerently, which I've got answers for more nations as well. Hold fire, Matt. We've got Brass Coast do cash bids, which makes sense. Varushka is Wise One's vote. I don't actually know what that is. A position title.
Presumably, yeah. Callie, perhaps you can enlighten us on what that is. And Urizen, I do remember actually is magic power, mage power.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's very cool. It almost makes Wintermark sound a bit boring that they just do it on votes. But
I'd like to go and watch another nation when their vote is happening. Actually,
yeah, absolutely. So it's cool because different senators get voted in different certain ways, and it's just quite interesting talking to others. And it changed a different element on how senators work in different nations. Because Wintermark, I guess, if you were voted in by your people, maybe you owe it a bit to them. Whereas if you're a Leaguish senator and you just buy all your votes, then you're almost owe nothing to people. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
The wise ones, by the way, is an archetype, much like Stormcrow.
Yeah, I did wonder.
Which is cool.
So
yeah, that's that. I think the main thing for new players to take away from this is that there is an entire game within the game if they want it.
Being a senator, fighting, or being a mage, or being a religious person, like that's a whole weekend's work on its own.
Yeah,
it's hard to do multiples. Not undoable, but it's there's so much to do. There's a whole weekend's worth of work out there for you to just go and do. And
absolutely.
That's forgetting.
And despite that, I personally managed to find myself mostly doing nothing, which is also fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weekend for everyone.
Exactly.
I find if I have a slightly busy day, I'm exhausted by the end of it, and I'm like, I just need to sit down. I need to relax. We've said about this before. It's a holiday, right? You go away you book your time off. You go away to Empire, and it's just it's a busy weekend. It's a really busy weekend. By the time you set your camp up, and you're going out and doing stuff, and then you sit down at the end of the weekend, it is exhausting. It's very, very, very enjoyable, but it's a lot. You do a lot. It doesn't take much to suddenly be dragged into something, and you're doing a lot. So yeah, especially if you've got a good bunch of mates around you who are active in the game as much as you are, you will find something to do. Absolutely, you will.
So when can we find ourselves at Empire, Matt?
Absolutely. So Empire is run 4 times a year at one site. So 4 times a year is April, June, July, and September. Dates wise, I can get them in a minute, but they're roughly the same weekends every year, more or less. It's normally, I'm lucky, the April event always lands on my birthday. So I get a birthday Empire event, which I'm very lucky. But yeah, I'll get the dates for you in a bit. But yeah, so that's the months you're in. Again, they're always those months as well, and then more or less always the same weekends. So booking holiday time, it's fairly consistent. It's always at the same location, which is Dadford Road campsite in Silverstone. Again, we can pop a location in the chat or the description. But again, keeping it all in the same place, obviously, it helps them massively. It keeps it easy for us. All the dates are the same. Again, keeps it easy for us.
Yeah, all of the details for all of the events that are being run and the location can be found on the Empire website.
Absolutely. And so it's we're obviously talking about the mainstream Empire events, which are the Empire events run by Profound Decisions, which are the main big hitters, the big events. And on a side note, which I thought we'd mention here, there are such things as players events or player events, which are events that are set in the Empire world but are run by players and not Profound Decisions. And these can range from social events where you go along and just have a drink and a good time or some food, to combat events where there's sort of fighting and stuff going on. And again, these are sort of player run, and they can be a handful of people to up to a couple of hundred people or maybe more, and again, they're set in the same Empire world. Strictly saying, these unsanctioned events are not canon. They're not to plot. However, there's a couple of player events out there that are run exceptionally well that Profound Decisions have labelled them sanctioned, which means that they are, what goes on is canon. I've only know of one event that's like that, but I'm pretty sure there's a handful out there.
there's one coming up soon, I believe.
Do you know the name?
I think it's called the Wild Hunt. I'm sure it's an Empire. I'm sure it's an Empire event, and I'm pretty sure Tom is going to it.
So it's safe to say, obviously, non-sanctioned events. You go along, do what you want. It doesn't matter what happens, essentially. But sanctioned events are the event planners and runners. They're obviously in communication with PD. They can kind of know what they can and can't do. And I guess it's safe to say if my character were to go to a non-sanctioned event and get run through by an orc, doesn't matter. If I were to go to a sanctioned event and get run through by an orc, then it does matter. And I'm probably, if I die at a sanctioned event, I'm dead in the game. Is that fair to say? I've never been to a sanctioned event, so I can't say. But
technically, yes.
Technically, yes. So that's it. That's the player events we've gone through. And player events are run throughout whole year. You normally find them on Facebook groups and stuff. They're sort of purchase tickets, go along. We as a group were lucky to run our own non-sanctioned event, which was a social event. So we just went along and had a good time for a weekend, which is great. There's a lot out there, again, aside from these big events, which again just creates it makes the world bigger and better by expanding outside of these 4 big events a year.
I think the sanctioned events happen more than we probably know of.
There's probably a lot more sanctioned events. Yeah.
Sam's come back from one this weekend called Return to Spider's Rest, and it was at the Eversley site, which is where ILARP operate. Which I'd love for us to talk about that in the future. We'll go down the ILARP route, I think, and talk about all the games that they put on. I think that'd be really good. But yeah, so he's been to a sanctioned event last weekend, and there's another one coming up in a couple of weekends, and that's just the ones in the southwest in the area we are. There's bound to be some up north as well, where Empire is further away, and obviously people want to have their Empire fix, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But if you're a new player, I would recommend not going to a sanctioned event as your first event.
Maybe, yeah, well, yeah.
Or not necessarily a sanctioned event, but a high combat event, I guess.
Yeah, there's obviously lots of varied events, right? There's social events, there's combat fighty events, there's in-between events. A couple of people we know, it's safe to say their first Empire experience was at a player event, which is not something I originally thought of. And now bumping into these people, it's a great idea because it's a taster of Empire. Player events tend to be smaller, so probably a bit more personal. I've personally had a lot of personal experiences, interactions with players at these smaller events, and it's actually really quite nice and refreshing being able to chat to people from other nations and stuff. So player events are interesting and fun, and just as much important as the big events, in my opinion.
I would say some of the player events I've been to have been some of the best events in the Empire bubble that I've done. The time that we all found ourselves in Mitwald was a very enjoyable event, and it was just relaxed. We were doing silly games, competitions.
We were wanging wellies.
I nearly died of laughter watching you eat a fruit pie in the pie eating contest. That was
so. I guess that
the highlight.
I guess it's down to me and you are very much social animals, and social player events appeal to us a lot. Whereas, for example, a couple of my friends they enjoy the combat side of the game, and there's combat events out there which appeal to them massively, and they enjoy themselves. So
yeah, and I think for new players potentially coming in, again, that's just an example of how there's definitely going to be something to everyone's taste, but you might not know what your taste is until you do it. I thought I was going to love the battles. I actually don't really care for them at all, to be honest, and that's why I stopped fighting for quite a long time.
I would say the same with me. However, I absolutely love the battles. I just find them so stressful.
Yeah, but
there's so much going on. I took about a year out of fighting in the big battles at Empire, And a couple of events ago I ended up doing a battlefield ritual, and
Oh yeah.
my god, it was I was buzzing. It was such an experience to be sat on a field of about 1,000 people, all
Yeah.
just fired up, and it was an incredible experience. And this is what I said previously, like, if you can get an opportunity to go on a battlefield, whether you're healing, you're fighting, you're running water for people, like, I feel that you've got to try it, because it's an incredible experience. It's something else to be in that position. But anyway, I get distracted. So, for me, fighting, yeah, cool. I just don't want to do the fighting, but I love seeing it. So,
Yeah.
So I guess the last little snippet would be about camping, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The IC and OC camps. So we've got a in character camp for each of the nations. So you can actually, it's almost like being in time in all the time. I think personally, camping in character, you feel a lot closer to the goings on. But not. So not to everyone's taste. There is also a OC out of character camping areas where you can have modern tents. But if you're going to be going IC, there is a certain amount of requirement to have the tent in keeping with the theme. So it's normally canvas. Bell tents is the most common thing that you'll see.
So that raises a question of what's IC and OC, right? I know you said so. IC is in character, OC out of character. So I guess IC in character is a place where the Empire world's set in, right? So that's part of the camp where everything there is in character. You're in Empire, right? And that has a time zone of, was it 10:30 in the morning till 1 in
10 a.m. to 1 a.m.
10 a.m. to 1. So you can wake up in the morning. We wake up, we go for our walk and our shower, and then we come back 10 o'clock. We're in our kit and we're ready to go. And then we play that till 1 in the morning, and then it's time out again. So IC is everything in that time frame, in that bubble, has got to be in character, and that, like Mark says, is all the tents and stuff need to be sort of almost set in that period, which is sort of canvas tents, almost, I guess you could just briefly to say, like, medieval period where it's all canvas tents,
Yeah.
There's no electric heaters or electric gas stoves on show. It's all fire pits, canvas tents, so that and then sort of off from that, on the outside of the field, you've got the out of character camping, which, like you said, is all your sort of modern camps and stuff, modern tents. This is just where it's completely out of character, so you don't need to be in character there. You can sleep in the out of character, you can get ready and you're in your kit, and then you walk into the in character field, and that's game time. So
yeah,
there's two sides to it. So
there's benefits and downsides to both, I would say. I don't know if we want to cover those briefly. For me, one of the benefits of OC camping is you don't have to try and get your car through the one-way system through the IC area. That is a huge bugbear for me.
So IC camping, obviously you don't have your cars there. That's obviously without. So we're talking from someone who has no experience. IC, again, I said everything's got to be in character, so your car's not sat by your tent, right? You put your tent up, your canvas tent, which looks all in character of the period, and then you drive your car to a car park, and then so the whole world IC, you're all there, you're in your IC camp, done. OC, obviously, yeah, you can have your car nearby, which is great, but IC, like you said earlier, Matt, like IC is. What I camp IC, and what I like about IC is I wake up in the morning, I'm almost in character straight away. I get into my gear, I'm done. I'm sort of.
You pass out ready. In yesterday's kit, straight up again.
We tend to have a fire pit by our camp. We always have a bit of a sing song at night. Go to bed, and it's. And again, camps themselves, IC camps themselves are a place of interaction. So I would say we have quite a nice camp set up at Empire, where we have players coming to us from people we don't know coming to us, wanting to trade, wanting to talk, which is just it's nice interactions with players we wouldn't necessarily have interactions with. So that's the benefit of IC, right? You've got an IC camp, whereas OC, it's all off to the side. If you had no IC presence when it comes to camps, you might miss out on certain things like that, maybe. But then also, you don't need those IC interactions of camps. It's just nice to have that.
Yeah.
In my opinion, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I guess also that's the camping, the sleeping side of it settled. I guess you could talk about food vendors. So PD have sort of arranged. There's, well, I guess you could say like 10 food vendors that arrive for the weekend. They sell anything from, well, maybe not quite 10, but toasties.
It's
hot dogs,
gotten
pizzas,
it's gotten less
burgers.
over the years, I'd say.
Slightly, yeah. So there is food
But still,
on the site. So
there's still a good amount, I would say, and there is also a selection for everyone's dietary requirements, I would say.
yes, so vegan, everything like that. I would safe to say I would turn up to an event without any food and feed myself. I'd happily do that. I would say you don't need to bring food with you. There's absolutely enough vendors to cater for everyone that's going, and there's a good selection. There was a really good well, there was a really good burger place last time. It said Toasties. They used to have that really good Asian food place. They had a really good selection. Again, yeah, I think you might be right. Like maybe there's less options now, but also we're talking just after COVID, where, for example, I'm pretty sure the Asian food place shut down because of COVID, which is really sad. Otherwise, I'm sure they would have been there this year.
Yeah.
So,
and as Tom says, it's a much cheaper way of if you're new and you're wanting to go to LARP on a budget, then definitely you can absolutely bring your own food. You can bring your own ways to cook it, as long as it's not too. If you're staying in character, then as long as your cooking stuff is away in your tent, it's all good. But if you're OC, then you can bring any kind of cooking utensils.
So, I guess food-wise, we could talk about our camp. So, like I said, you've got the option to buy all your food, and you'll probably be fine. Like there won't be an issue, I don't think, with food. You might have to wait in a bit of a queue, but so again, going back to what we've done in the past, I've done cooking over logs, over a fire. And what we currently do is we've partitioned off our big in-character camp tent. We've partitioned off a little kitchen area, which we put a big screen up, so you can't see anything. And we've actually got a gas stove behind there. So it's all sort of partitioned off, so people can't just wander in and ruin their immersion of the game. But we've got a gas stove there where we can boil water easy, do toasties, hot dogs, bacon sandwiches. We've done, so we can kind of
cheese boards,
cheese boards, charcuterie boards or whatever they're called.
we're living the high life over in Birchen Hall at the moment.
Absolutely, we've done steak nights.
Yeah.
So again, but we're lucky with our camp. But yeah, so you can. I know a few people that do gas burners, IC, but they just keep it very out of the way, which you can't really see. Which sort of out of sight, out of mind, I guess, with IC and stuff like that, perhaps.
Yeah.
But there's plenty. I've done it before where I've just bought a load of bread rolls and a load of jam and just did jam sandwiches for a weekend.
Well, we're reminiscing in the chat. I don't know. I can't remember if you like them or not, but the trenchers. Oh, that was fantastic. Just a bowl,
a fan of the
bread bowl full of random fried items. What more could you ask for? You weren't a fan of them, did you say?
I found them impractical to eat. But that's just me.
Is that because you wanted to eat the bread as well?
Man of practicality. Well, no, I got given a wooden fork and then a whole sausage and an egg. And you're like, how do you cut up a... But hey, we get stressed about these things.
Well, yeah, I think you should just be making do.
But
get a knife out of the kitchen.
Again, there's absolutely lovely choices of food about, and also I've seen IC food being sold quite a bit. I remember walking
Mhm.
through League once, and I'm pretty sure it was League, and someone had like a hot dog. They were cooking hot dogs and selling at Icy.
Yeah. I mean, if you can find a way to do it, then you can absolutely do it. And for some people, their entire game at Empire is just making food and drink in character for in character money.
And there is quite a few like in character pubs, or that sort of thing, and they sell food. You know, there's I've seen it done a few other pubs selling like sort of meatballs and stuff like that, which is fun.
Yeah.
So just absolutely get food about. I guess we then link on to traders, sort of.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about traders?
I can talk about traders. Yeah, there are traders. No, there
Right,
is.
okay,
I would say I would say that the trader setup is fantastic. I think there's how many shops would you say there are? 20?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Maybe even more. I'm just trying to think. I'm just visualizing walking down Trader Alley now.
Good number. It's a good number.
And it's from companies all over the country that specialize in providing LARP and reenactment costume. You can get weapons, armor, accessories for all of those. There is even more recently people selling just like strips of leather. I don't know if it's real leather or faux leather, but you can just get like pelts and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of pelts.
Yeah, basically anything that you would be short of, you could almost certainly find it at the site. And I would for if there's any new players thinking about playing, I would definitely recommend trying to at least get weaponry on site, because you'll guarantee it's when you go for fights, you have to have your weapons checked to make sure they're safe. And I believe every trader on site has to provide weapons that are safe to use and should pass weapons check. And then if they don't, I believe you can go back to the majority of traders to get a refund.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, obviously touching on the weapons check thing, profound decisions have a certain criteria you have to meet when using weapons. And yeah, if you buy at an event, there's a very good chance that most weapons there are going to hit that criteria, because they've been working with profound decisions for so long. Like these companies, they know what profound decisions want, which is just safe weapons. And if you buy a weapon, there's a very good chance it's going to pass fine. And if not, every interaction I've had with traders, there's just like, oh, bring it back. If there's an issue, let us know, bring it back.
Yeah.
And they'll either sort it or they'll get you a different weapon. Or, I don't think I've met a funny trader at Empire. They've all been absolutely brilliant.
I don't think
because they're all there, passionate and enjoying it. So
I don't think any of my weapons have failed weapon check yet. Touch wood, and they've all been bought in the field. You can kind of see them behind me. I've got my spear, which I haven't used for a very long time. I actually mainly use it for when we're monstering as orcs. And then I definitely can't fit this in the camera probably, but it's Lucan's staff. It's stupidly long, but both bought in the field, both passed every time so far. So it's just really good quality stuff that you get at the field, and you see it in person before you buy it. I just think it's
yeah, that's it. You can handle it. I would say you can handle it and swing it around and be like, yeah, I like this.
Yeah.
And exactly that. You can see it in person, and that goes with not just weapons, but I think most there's a lot of traders there selling clothing that, if you went to Empire with sort of basic kit, you could flesh yourself out.
Yeah.
With your clothing out very easy.
Almost certainly.
Yeah. Just walking around a couple of traders, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, apparently I'm wearing Sam's knife in the picture currently on the stream. I forgot to put it up when we were talking about other LARPs, but this is an example of some other LARPs that we've done. We've got Matt is actually right below the picture of him as Sarin.
Where am I going? There we go.
Right in the center is me as my cowboy crew character. Lars Winters, probably. Actually, no, that probably wouldn't be Lars Winters. That's probably just some generic mercenary. And then on the left is our very own Large Sam from the chat. At I think Dropship, which is an airsoft slash LARP. So it's kind of blending the both. Yeah, Dropship Achilles, that's the one. Oh, we've got a question actually, Matt. Going back to traders, would we recommend any IC traders?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're lucky that in Wintermark we've got a trader called Applebee's.
A shameless plug from Matt there.
I might be related to. My mother, my mother attends Empire, and she runs a clothing shop. So yeah, so like I said, there is traders in the trading alley. So Empire, so they've got like a trading area, but there are also traders camping in the in-character camping bits, which is fun because it kind of adds to the game. They've obviously got all be in character. They've got to be IC. They've got to kind of abide by the rules that we all do, but they're selling stuff as well. So again, they can kind of get away with selling for real money, but they need to fit in the IC thing. Obviously, that's a whole other subject about talking about selling in character and out of character monies. Just to keep it easy for now. Yes, they can. You know, there's other people out there selling. In the in-character camping bit, which is great.
Katie's recommended
Armories, yeah.
Katie and Tom have recommended light armories. I would agree with that. Very good weaponry in there for sure.
They are in the merchants trading bit though, not the in-character bit. But yeah, there is another person selling weapons in the in-character bit in Wintermark as well, but I can't remember.
Is there?
Called. Yeah, they were for a couple of events at least. Yeah.
So, we're just talking about ones that we'd recommend at the moment.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm rubbish at remembering the names of shops, but what I would say is there aren't any that I wouldn't recommend from the ones that I've been in.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, they're all. Someone's mentioned LARP gems. LARP gems are great as well. Again, they're all great, and they're all a bit different as well. There's some, you'll walk around every stall and you'll find something a bit different, and some of it's just fantastic. So, traders, we're lucky that there's so many good ones at the event as well. They're at the event, so you don't have to order online. They're there. You can just go have a look and spend your money.
Yeah.
So I guess the very last one before we move on is just the physical buildings.
Yep.
So there is only a couple of physical buildings, the Empire site, which are.
So it's written into the game, isn't it? That
exactly.
That basically buildings aren't a thing at Anvil. Everyone comes in tents, but there are a couple of buildings that are permanent structures purely for. Well, actually, I don't even know if they still build them every event, don't they? But they're basically there for mechanical purposes. So one of them is the Senate building,
or the throne.
Where the throne is,
as where the throne is, so it doubles as sort of the throne room. But yeah, it's the Senate building, which multiple things are held at. So you've got obviously the throne. So whoever holds the throne has got their stuff there. You got the Senate that meets there, and you got multiple other sort of important things that happens there as well. Throughout the weekend.
Yeah.
And then
that dance club.
There's a Senate dance club. I don't know if there's any other dance clubs, but yeah, there is absolutely a midnight dance club. I think it is, which
that happens in the Senate building, I believe.
Yeah, it does. There, and then I guess go on to the last building, which is the Forge.
The pub.
So, which is the pub? Yeah. So the Forge is obviously a physical building, which is run by PD. And it's a bar essentially, and this is where you can actually buy drinks for sort of real money, not in character money. And they've got like pumps there. They've got loads of different beer. So if you don't want to go buy beer in character, Again, all in character drink is run by players, right? So
Yeah,
there's
but
no
the forge is
fantasy.
still technically in the in-character zone.
Yeah, sorry, it is in character, absolutely 100%. But you can use real money, right?
Yes. Yep.
Whereas everywhere else you've got to use in character.
Yes. Or
I guess the
barbarian coin, as we call it in Empire.
barbarian coin. I guess the only other place you're potentially going to buy alcohol from are the food vendors, but I don't think they sell alcohol.
No.
Maybe for licensing issues, but
No, I don't think they do.
Found Decisions, yeah, they have the Forge, which is a really nice. I don't go there that often because I just don't. You know, I've got other pubs, in character pubs I go to. I know this is an in character pub, but I like using in character coin for buying my drinks. Whereas this one you don't. But yeah, I've been there a couple of times. It's really nice. Normally really busy. So
Yeah, it does get quite packed in there. But if you're looking for any kind of like small random things that are going on, it normally happens in the forge for some reason.
Yeah. On a slight note, just got a thing in the chat about any permanent mentions of any permanent site, apparently. So Profound Decisions obviously rent this. So that's another point. As Profound Decisions don't own the site they're at, they rent it. And they are currently looking at purchasing a site, which we don't know anything about because Profound Decisions are still trying to do it. So
basically they've been looking for a
years.
permanent site for years now.
Yeah.
And I believe they're ramping it up more this year. There are rumors flying around about where it's going to be, but we just don't know. We personally, Matt and I, don't know anything about major plans for a permanent site. But we've talked about it in our group, and I think the consensus we feel like it probably won't be for a while, just because of the amount of time it takes to find a site and then buy the site.
I guess you could say you got to find the site, buy the site, and prepare the site.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's very much on their radar, right? Of they want to get it done ASAP, because the sooner they buy a site, the sooner they stop paying rent to someone else. So
yeah,
but we've kind of come to the agreement that it's probably not going to be this year.
Yeah,
it's going to take a long time. You know, you think you try to buy a house, it's like 3, 4, 5 months to buy a house.
Yeah,
because solicitors are terrible. So anyway, that's yes, I guess that's the IC and OC area sort of settled, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I guess any questions, ask them, but we try to keep it brief for a reason, right? We want to try to cover as much as we can.
The danger we knew we had going into this is that we could go off on mega tangents about any topic that we've talked about tonight. But I think it would be cool to break them down. I think it would be cool to break them down in greater detail over perhaps a series of videos. If everyone's enjoyed this one, I think it would be good fun to do that. Do we want to go? I've pulled out some of the questions that we haven't been able to answer. They're mostly silly ones. So I don't know if we want to cover them quickly before we look at the character creation page.
Yep. Yeah, do a Q&A.
This first question is something that we'll cover when we talk about Wintermark specifically, but it was, what does a Thane really do? And I know why this has been asked. It's because Lucan has been a bit sloppy at going to things that Thanes should be going to, like Thanes meet and stuff like that. But in terms of what they should really be doing is listening to the advisors to the Hall, which in Wintermark's case is the Calavesi.
Traditionally, Calavesi,
yeah. And there is a player-run meeting at Empire called Thanes Meet, where all the Thanes go and listen to the other Thanes complain about stuff, essentially. Sometimes random things happen, like we had a couple of emissaries from, I think, the Grendel turning up, and then it kicked off, which is a tale for another time. Thanes sit in meetings getting angry that people don't listen to them, essentially. Other than that, I'm not I'm not really sure mechanically what Thanes should be doing. Just trying to look after the hall the best they can.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's very much. I don't. Obviously, I can only speak for our hall, our group, but everything that we decide is democratic. It's not just me going, do this, do that. Like I think we put pretty much everything to a vote. If we want to, like, change anything or whatever, you know. If we have potentially new people that could join the group, then it goes to a vote between everyone in the hall, and stuff like that. Per the wiki, they settle civil and military matters. Absolutely. I'd say I probably look at civil matters more than military matters because, from an OC perspective, I could not care less about the military side of the game at the moment. And plus, I've got Tom for that. He handles the military stuff. A rider.
You got your hallmates to do that.
Yeah, delegation then is the short answer to what things are supposed to do. The second question is, how often does Lucan tend to Thanes meet? Which
very often.
I would like. I say on average most of them, because sometimes I go to all of them and sometimes I don't go to very many of them. So out on average, I would say somewhat often. Final question is quite a good one, actually. What are your top tips for first-time LARPer, things to bring, etc., that you might not think of? I know I've seen in the chat at various points tonight people have said socks, and I absolutely cannot agree more. I think it's become a bit of a meme, but you can never have too many socks. It is... Dafford Road has its own climate, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
And the amount of times I've left my house 2 hours away and driven through, like, a full-on rainstorm, blazing sunshine, and then, like, hailstones. And then you get to the site, and it's cloudy and warm. And then at night, it goes to, like, -4 or something stupid. And, yeah, socks for sure.
Socks, absolutely. You got to look after your feet at Dafford.
Yeah,
that's an absolute.
Yeah, and in general, basically your kit stops at the ankle down, so you want to wear shoes that are as comfortable as they can be and warm and protective, essentially.
Well, I wear walking boots.
Yeah, same.
I would say good quality, but they're not rubbish. But they keep my feet dry. But yeah, absolutely, look after your feet.
Yeah,
your feet are gonna. If you've got a semi-busy weekend, your feet are going to do a lot of walking, because that's what 90% of Empire is walking around the field. You know?
Oh yeah,
there's so much walking going on potentially, so you got to look after your feet.
And you don't notice that you're doing it until you're 2 days in, and you're like, "Why are my feet absolutely destroyed?"
So I guess for me, so socks, feet, footwear, absolutely important. And then
I've got another one from personal experience, and that is. For the love of God, check your if you're bringing an inflatable bed, check it before you go, because our first event, the bed had a 50p size hole in it, and we ended up sleeping on the floor, and it was unbelievably cold. And I don't often get cold when I'm camping. It was so cold.
I've been there, absolutely. I guess another thing I would say was just nighttime wear. So how do I say it? So Empire, obviously it runs, in theory, in character, runs till 1 a.m. So you could find you're staying up quite late, and half the events are in a colder months of the year. So I would say, think about, so me and my friends went for our first couple of events, like buying cloaks, essentially.
Yeah.
Just something you could just put on, basically, just to keep you warm, because you can get real cold. And obviously, it depends where your night takes you, but you might want to start late, and it can get so cold. And also, nightwear extends into pajama wear, which I would say I sleep in like some really comfy jogging bottoms and jumper and stuff. layer up, because the amount of times I've gone to bed in what I normally wear to bed, which is like my pants and a t-shirt, and you wake up at 3 a.m, absolutely freezing cold.
Yeah.
So I would say, just think about it. Camping being camping, you don't realize it, but you feel the cold, and at night it can drop. So absolutely think about that before you go to bed. Layer up before you go to bed, and also just give yourself options on a cold night or something like that. Just give yourself layers. You don't want to just turn up in a tunic and that's it, and then come 6 o'clock you're freezing. So
Yeah. Absolutely. I would say pack for the worst weather you can think of in all aspects. So I normally bring thermals and stuff, even though we had quite a warm year last year. I never used them. Just pack for extreme cold, pack for extreme heat as well, because there has been a couple of events where it is pushed. I think it was 35, 36, 37 maybe on one of the Thursdays.
Oh yeah,
it was
insane,
unbelievably hot.
So regardless of weather, I take about 12 pairs of socks, whether it's hot or rainy, sunny, cold, whatever. Just take socks are the big one. Socks.
Yeah.
Take lots of socks. But it's like you said, Dadford just has its own weather system.
Yeah, it's got its own fully functioning weather thing going on, and you can never predict it. I feel like we should. I guess it's more of a warning to people wanting to come to Empire. Be prepared for mud, because remember the muddening.
Well, I guess it's safe to say it is a field at the end of the day. Drainage is good, but when you've got near 3,000 people walking around a field, it's going to get muddy. And when you've got that many people's cars driving around the field, getting on the field and getting off the field at the end of the weekend, it's going to get muddy. It's again like heavy rain, which we've experienced torrential rain all weekend a few times. It's not great.
I have vivid memories of the one where we had just streams of water going through the camp, where we dug out like troughs for the water to go through.
Again, I guess slight credit to LARP is that was some of the lowest points of potentially of my life. You're sat in a camp, you're cold, there's literally a river running through your legs, and you think, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then, in a month later, you're back there again. So
because you forget. But I think as long as you've got the willpower to know in your head that I'm camping out in the elements, that's all it boils down to, isn't it? You're in a tent in the middle of a field.
If you're happy on a wet event, you're gonna get cold and you're gonna get wet. On a hot event, you're gonna get hot, you're gonna get sweaty. It's just accepting that you're out in a field in the weather. So whatever the weather's going to be, you're probably going to be that. So absolutely. I don't know, it's just accepting that. Again, it's the whole other side of it. It's not just LARP; it's camping as well. You're not sat in a hotel the whole time. You could do. There is hotels nearby. Absolutely, go stay in a hotel and drive there every morning. But if you're camping on the site, you are camping as well as LARPing. So there are two different sides of it. Yeah,
definitely. And we've had some really good advice in the chat as well for first timers. It'll probably be something that we could again do a separate episode on, just going through essentials for your first time at LARP. I think that'd be quite a good thing we could do, because again, there's just so much you could cover. But waterproof layers and stuff is good. It helps depending on the nation you're in. It's easier to find, I think, icy clothing that helps. So obviously in Wintermark we're quite furry,
layered up.
quite layered up. Cloaks and stuff are relatively common. So I think we have a good opportunity to stay out of the elements, because we naturally live icy in a harsher.
That plays
climate
against us when it's boiling hot.
It does play against us when it's hot. We don't have any summer wear, unless we wear shorts. Those little shorts.
I wish I could.
Some people do. Some people do it. In fact, I have seen somebody wear just a tunic in the extreme heat and sandals.
I wish that was me.
But yeah, it's just a bit of forward planning, I think.
It's like anything. Yeah. I think the more you do, the more you experience, the more you learn.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And like after what we worked out, was it 11? And I've done 11 events. You've done 12.
I think so.
And I would say I'm kind of pretty settled in what I take to an event, but I'm still tweaking what I take.
I have spent a lot of time perfecting my sleeping arrangements because I've realised that having a good night's sleep is important for me at Empire and LARP in general. So yeah, my sleeping quarters are pretty up there.
You could say that was probably one of the biggest, the biggest things for a new player is thinking how you're sleeping, because sleep is extremely important. Again, it goes back to you got an insanely busy weekend. You got to make sure you're getting the Z's, getting the right sleep.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the fact that you're probably doing 15,000 steps a day, you're also physically exerting yourself if you're fighting, or mentally exerting yourself if you're doing any kind of politicking or rituals and stuff like that.
The amount of times I've sat down at the end of a long day and my feet are just sore, You just want to be able to rest properly. So
yeah, definitely. Do we want to look at character creation and perhaps? So I don't know if everyone knows in the chat what is going to be happening, but I thought it would be fun for chat to decide on a character for me to play next when my current character is retired or dies.
I reckon what we do. There's a lot of people in the chat who are experienced LARPers at Empire. So I reckon we make a character for fun, and we don't need to go into creating a character too seriously, and we save that for next episode. So still make a character for fun. Make your next character, absolutely.
Oh no, I think we should make my character bit by bit each episode. So today we'll choose a nation, for example, and then next time we'll work on a name, and then over the series we'll have built a character together.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
I read it differently. I read it differently. I was going to say we haven't got enough time to really break down what is creating a character, but
no, we've definitely gone over the planned amount of time that we would need for this, but it's not a bad thing.
Let's fire up the character then, and we'll I reckon fire up the character, and let's have a bit of a chat on what nation we should go for and why.
Okay. Hold on. Hold firm.
Hold fast.
So here we are, character creation screen.
So this obviously is just the Profound Decisions website.
Yes, I'm going to assume prior knowledge that people can get to this page.
You'll need to make an account to get to this page.
Yeah, it's very straightforward.
Again, we're assuming, although the current chat know it, but people watching this video back might not. So you need to make an account, and then you get to this page, and you can create a character, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Now.
So you can see my current characters here. Lucan Leilson. And Ottar Leilson. Absolutely no idea what he's doing. I must have made him at some point. But you're going to want to go to create Empire character. We could also cover making a group one day. Not necessarily right now.
So I guess the absolute first thing is deciding what nation we're going to be. Right?
Yeah, well, the character creation wizard, it's pretty straightforward. It guides you through everything that you need to do. And there's the majority of the stuff. It'll tell you whether you need to do it now or if it's something that can be changed later, I believe. But also, if you one important thing to remember is if you're new to Empire, is if you make a character and then you go and play that character on your first event and hate everything you've done about it, a simple email to Profound Decisions and they'll change whatever you want on it for the first time, because nobody wants to pay money and then play a character that they hate. So if you don't worry too much about if you go down this rabbit hole of lore about your character and then want to change it all, because it's very easy to do it.
And they're very they're very like helpful when it comes to character stuff. You know, you could rewrite your whole character. They'll be happy.
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah, exactly. I've completely changed my characters. Well, Lucan started out as a like a melee axe and round shield fighter, and I've completely changed all of that now. I've got rid of all of my melee skills and stuff, and now he's pure mage. So even as you go down the line, I think you can get rid of one skill after each event, sort of like retrain 1 XP and stuff. But certainly for your first event, if you hate everything you've done, you can, I guess you can either just kill off your character and make a new one, or you can ask PD to change.
See, I would almost say, like, your first event, run like a burner character almost, where you're happy to you go in, get the feelers, and just rewrite your character. Or again, like, if you're like, I'm not happy with my skills, if you email PD, if it's your first time, your first character, they'll absolutely sort you out.
Yeah.
And if you're a very experienced character and you still want to re-roll a skill, they allow that now, where like you said, you can re-roll 1 skill. So per event.
So I'm thinking we run a couple of polls for the nation, because I think on Twitch you can only do 5 at a time, so we can put the first 5 up, and then if you don't want to vote for any of those, wait for the second poll and you can vote in those 5, if that makes sense to everyone.
Yep.
See if I can do it here. Yeah, it's looking like we can. What nation will the character be? I'm just gonna put what nation. So we got Brass Coast.
Yep.
Wintermark. Well, I've got it on the carousel here. I'm just going in the order of what they come up on here.
Oh yeah.
And Navarre, right. Our first 5 is Brass Coast, Wintermark, Varushka, Urizen, and Navarre.
I guess you could say, if anyone who's unsure of these nations, check the wiki out. Go have a look at the wiki.
Yeah, and we can briefly talk about.
There's a brief description.
We could briefly talk about the description as we're doing the vote now. What do we think? 2 minutes per poll?
Bump up a bit. 5 minutes. I'll make it 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
We've got to release the other poll. And we'll just waffle for 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, we've waffled for 2 hours and 17 minutes, so we can do it for another 10. Right. Here comes poll number 1.
Here comes the poll.
So get your votes in, gang, if it's any of those on the screen. There is another 5, so if you're not wanting to vote for any of these 5, please hold for the next poll.
Shall I read the wiki for nations? I'm going to start with the first, I guess, I don't know, I'll read the first little paragraph and then 5 things to know about the nation.
Okay,
so
Brass Coast.
We're going to start with the Brass Coast. The freeborn of the Brass Coast are travellers, traders, lovers, and poets. They are exuberant and flamboyant. When they laugh, their humour is infectious and without spite. When they love, they do so with passion. That is so without guile that when they're angry, their wrath is like a summer storm, terrible to behold, but swift in passing. To the freeborn is to be freeborn is to be driven by hunger of life or for life, to see the world, to taste every delicacy, sample every wine, and tell every tale. Success is measured in wealth, family, and influence, not out of greed, but for the joy that success brings. They are notoriously candid. All things can have a price. The prize of freedom and responsibility, and disdain arrogance. What does that mean? They crave adventure and excitement.
Are you still on Brass Coast?
Yeah.
Right, we got to do less because
to be explicit. Right, okay,
we're nearly like halfway through the first poll.
No, why don't we do 2 polls? Chuck another
We
poll.
are doing 2 polls, but you've got to get through 5 nations in this poll.
Oh, I was just going to read all the nations.
No, read the nations that the poll's about. Right,
Yeah,
I'm taking over. I'm taking over this.
Just chuck up the other 5, and then I'll read all 10.
Brass Coast, you've covered.
Yeah,
Winter. Well, there's a brief description on the carousel for each one.
yeah, that'd be easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Right. So we've done Brass Coast. There's Wintermark, which a lot of people will be familiar with anyway. But the indomitable Winterfolk stare down every threat with their heads unbowed, for they know that death is only the long sleep before the dawn. I feel like we should just talk about what the nations look like.
Maybe.
Varushka is a land of hard lessons and dark tales. The Varushkans are unyielding and uncompromising. They do what must be done to keep the Empire strong.
They're Cossacks. There we go.
Urizen is a nation of magic, where magic is king. It is a nation that understands that a single individual can change the world if they have sufficient will to do so. Please stop voting for Urizen. Is that the last one? Oh no, and the Var are the great travellers of the Empire, direct and efficient. Few know better than they how to use the lands of the Empire to survive and to fight.
And they're the worst.
Varushka is explicitly not Cossacks. By the way, I need to add a disclaimer.
They are absolutely Cossacks.
No. So those are the first 5 essentially. So Brass Coast is
not Cossacks.
yeah.
Yeah,
you've just said it.
And if someone asked me in the street tomorrow, I'd tell them they're Cossacks.
The opinions that heard on this stream are not representative of Theramar specifically.
They're not evil.
Yeah, so Brass Coast is like shiny, lots of colour, like silk fabricy wearing kind of, isn't it? Is that an accurate description of what they wear?
Yeah. Colour. Well, I mean, like they said about wealth and stuff, so they're very flashy. Aren't they?
Yeah. Wintermark is explicitly not Vikings, but it's sort of Vikings. But we said earlier Saxon / Rohirrim from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
that kind of
Saxon, don't they? So.
that kind of vibe. Varushka we've covered. Urizen. I don't really know how to describe Urizen. It's very ethereal, I would say.
Ethereal, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And very magical, very magic-y. And Navarre is sort of people of the woods, stabby types.
Native of the wood, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the first poll's done anyway, and Urizen has been an absolute landslide, unfortunately. So I don't want to play an Urizen, but I will do it for the meme if it wins. But we've got another 5 to do anyway, which I'll set up now. Where did we finish Navarre? So we got the marches, League. I feel like we can talk about these ones a bit more because we're more involved. Imperial Orcs. Highguard.
Have you put Dawn in as well?
I believe Dawn will be the last one. Dawn. And what nation? Part 2. So the second poll's up now. If you haven't seen a nation that you wanted to vote for yet, they are the last 5. So make sure you get your votes in. Like I said, I will play whatever this character is. I will play it when Lucan dies or retires. And going forward after this, we'll cover everything involved in the making of the character over the next few streams. You'll get to choose. Well, while the poll's going, we can briefly see all the different things you can choose. All the different kinds of skills.
So
combat.
So Steve, you have XP, right, which you spend.
Skills. Yep. XP. You get 2 XP a year. One at E1 at the end of E1 and one at the end of E3.
Mm-hmm.
And each skill costs XP. I think you start with 8. And there's all kinds of skills. So if it's going to be combat, there's loads of stuff that we'll go through. But the heroic skills are to do with combat too. Magical skills, that will include all of the ritual stuff that we've talked about and all of the battle mage stuff that we've talked about. Surgical skills, that was covered in the brief healing chats that we had. And potion making and stuff comes under that too. Crafting is your artisans for making magical weapons and stuff. And then the religious skills for extremely dedicated followers of the way. And then it goes into even more specific stuff. We can't look at territories too much yet because it will depend on what nation I'm going to be. Looks like it's going to be Urizen at this rate, unless we get some more votes for Dawn. Don't forget to vote as well, Matt, if you can. I don't know if you can.
I can. I just haven't voted.
Please save me from playing Urizen. Do you know what though? If it ends up being Urizen, I'm probably end up going to loving it because it's the one that I didn't want to play.
Oh, I missed out on the other poll. I can't vote Urizen now.
Everyone ignore Tom as well. You can absolutely vote for Dawn. Then we'll look at resources.
No, so I think next episode we can just start the creation and we can just start the nations, go through it all, then go to skills, go through it all.
Yeah.
Then go through resources, go through it all, and then so.
Yeah. We can't look at details page yet because we haven't chosen a territory or a resource. But
next we'll have that, won't we? So.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Next stream, sorry.
Yeah. Cool. So what have we got? Marches. I would like to play a Marcher one day. That is on my list of things to play. We are going to have to do a third poll, Matt, because Dawn is now drawing with Urizen. So we're going to have to put Urizen and Dawn up against each other and see what wins. Hopefully one of them.
Make it happen.
Otherwise we'll do a flip of the coin. But I think we've got like 2 minutes left on the poll. So if you haven't voted yet, make sure you get your vote in for what nation you want to see me play. The marches, pretty much us in real life, I would say. Yokel farmer types.
Scrumpy drinking farmers.
Yeah. So it'd be easy to play and fun. The league. We recently went to a league-ish player event. And it was a masquerade ball, very fun. But that's pretty much on a base level kind of the look and feel of them, isn't it? Imperial Orcs, that would be...
Love an Imperial Orc.
Yeah, you want to play an Imperial Orc, I know, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would be up for it. But I'd like us to have a group of us going in there for the first time, I think. Because I think it's...
Yeah. Or have contacts made there before you go in. So you've got someone to talk with. I think starting out on your own would be tough as an Imperial.
Yeah, absolutely. High Guard. Don't really know what to say about High Guard. However, the poll is over and Dawn has actually won by 1 vote. So
Jesus.
my next character will be Dornish. Ah, do I wish I had? Do I wish Erison had won? I'm not sure. I think I'm up for that. I'm up for that. I'm fine with that. I know some people in Dawn that will hopefully take care of me. Oh, Martha, you saved me from a fate worse than death. There you go. I'm sorry, gang. Dawn has won 6-5. So we know the nation of what my character is going to be next. It's good to know.
Referendum.
No, none of that. One vote and done. None of this referendum stuff.
Not another one.
They're keeping politics, IRL politics, out of it.
Right, I guess that's it.
Yeah, I think probably a good place to leave it for today. Hopefully everyone has enjoyed the time here. It's really got me in the mood for Empire by talking about it, which I think is good. I'm actually really keen for Empire anyway, whereas normally during the long dark I'm a bit like, April's approaching. But I don't know, I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
Be nice to talk about
it. Yeah. Thank you for coming on, Matt, and having a chat. We'll I think if you're up for it, I'm up for doing another one of these. Maybe we'll get a guest on to talk about perhaps their expertise in certain subjects, or maybe not expertise as such, but everyone has an interest in a specific part of the game, so I think it'd be cool to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. Real. What I will do is we'll find somebody to quickly raid out to. What would you like to talk about next time, Matt?
I think I'd like to address a look at character creation, and then we'll go into sort of go through the whole process of creating a character, and then maybe once we've created our character, we could look at applying that in. So maybe next event, if we could, next stream, if we could create a character with the idea of then going into the game, and then that's maybe when we can have people to talk to. And someone said about costumes.
Yeah, Martha's just put a really good idea in. A what's in my LARP bag stream, that would be good. I've kind of done that a little bit with I've done a couple of streams where I'm sort of packing for LARP like the day before. So we could do a what's in my LARP bag, and it will probably be a good way of making a starter list for newer players, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Costumes I think we'll cover as we go through the nations, which would be cool. If anyone has any suggestions on what they want to see on future streams, you can put them in. Today I've made some new channels in the Discord. For there's one for Empire and one for ILARP currently. So if there's any suggestions on what you want to see on future, in fact I think there's a general one as well, so if you want to put your suggestions on what you want to see on any of these future videos in there, we can look at those and use them to plan future videos. Yeah, cool. Buzzing. Thank you everyone for joining today. I'm not going to raid out because I have nobody on that is anything to do with what we're talking about, so I don't think it would be good to raid into someone playing Fortnite or something. So we'll end here. Hopefully I'll see you all again. Thanks for everyone getting involved. Thanks for basically running 50% of this, Matt. It would have been very boring me just talking to myself for 2 hours, I think. Yeah, real. Thanks for the resubs and stuff that we've had in the stream tonight as well. Sorry there was no alerts. We wanted to keep the video nice and clean so we can upload it to YouTube and other places for people to catch the video after the live stream. Martha, thanks for the raid. Thanks for bringing your community in. I hope you had a good stream. Mal, thanks for the gifted sub to Stug the Corgi. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I hope you've had fun. That's my outro. Anything to add, Matt?
Thank you for everyone who's watched and supported the stream.
There you go.
And catch the next one. Absolutely.
Tune into the next one. Oh, I'm going to go to the intro screen for our outro.
Good night.